Do you want to understand the new fascination that Sri Rahul Gandhi exerts over all of us, and in particular the grudging media? Welcome, Vanakkam, Swagatham. One of the most astonishing, incredible, and significant trends at the present time is that at long last, grudgingly, and I use the word advisedly, grudgingly, the media has begun to pay some attention to Rahul Gandhi. It's not in the media, the famous Gandhi media wants to do so. It is that it has to do so for fear of losing out the ground entirely to the social media, the alternate media. It's quite a palpable fact that the attention and the prominence that Rahul Gandhi has gained, especially since June 4, 4th of June, is simply a political force that no one can wish away. And this has intensified after his speech in the parliament. But the fact that the mainstream media is now paying comparatively greater attention, more space, and showing a little more respect or a little less of contempt, which would be a better way of putting it, to Rahul Gandhi, does not mean that either the media fraternity or the audience at large understand the logic of what is happening. The fact that a change is accepted in a kind of mechanical fashion does not mean that those who adjust themselves to the change understand why they do so and what exactly is the pattern or the changed nuance which makes them behave as they do. In public life, it's true that very often people do not know what they do and why they do so. They simply do it. As the relevant advertisement of Nike puts it, just do it. Don't ask why. No need to understand the reasons for it. Just do it. Now, the very fact that such an advertisement exists says something about the outlook that exists in our midst. After all, this became a very popular advertisement. Just do it. And that's what the media men are doing. They're just doing it. But we who do not belong either to the media or to any one of the two political formations have a great advantage in this respect, and that is we can stand apart from all these processes like spectators in the gallery and watch the race, the Olympic event that's happening. And that's why the old proverb says that those in the stands enjoy the event better because they have a much better view. If you ask the sprinter who participates in a 100 meters dash or 200 meters dash to describe the race, they will not be able to do it as well as ascribe standing or sitting in the stands. So, my attempt in this video is to take my viewers into confidence and tell them what constitutes the very fascinating ingredients of this new national dish of increasing positivity and decreasing allergy, orchestrated allergy to Rahul Gandhi. My interest, your interest is purely historical, academic, cultural, not political at all. Even if there is every chance that what I'm going to say would be stigmatized as political or even politically biased, but that's their choice. I'm here to share with you the privileged understanding I have as a person who does not participate in this process and who is not partisan to any of the players in the process. Now, therefore, the question that we have to ask, or the phenomenon that we are now trying to understand, is this: why is it that all of a sudden there is a change, a grudging change? I again underline the word grudging, and not that anybody wants it, but people are forced to accept it to an extent. There's a grudging willingness or inclination to acknowledge that Sri Rahul Gandhi embodies in him something that cannot be brushed aside. But what is that something? And why does it fascinate us? This is something that even the ardent stormtroopers of the Modi camp could benefit from if they have the slightest particle of common sense, which they have to prove whether or not they possess. I'm nobody to forejudge the issue. Just watch out for how they respond to this substance of this video, and then you'll have the answer yourself. All right, now let's stay focused on the central question. What constitutes the essence, the magical essence of this surprisingly changed disposition towards the most maligned, most vilified personage in Indian politics, namely Rahul Gandhi? In my opinion, the two main ingredients in this changed menu are: one, as you would quite rightly readily expect, the very memorable speech Rahul Gandhi made in the parliament consequent to the presidential address to both houses of the parliament. I've done 3 or 4 videos on the subject. Therefore, I'm not going to focus on the speech per se, since there is no joy in repeating oneself, and fortunately, there is no need to repeat oneself. The Indian political scenario, changing as fast as it does and as complex as it proves, provides inexhaustible resources to ensure the freshness of our discussions and deliberations in this regard. Now, the two most significant events in recent times, and they are actually a study in contrast, and taking note of them would in itself constitutes a very profound experience of our own personal schooling. That's why I make bold to share these thoughts with you. The two most significant events or nodal events. One is, of course, the speech that Rahul Gandhi made, which was extremely effective, which the scribes in the media had to grudgingly admit was actually more powerful, more relevant, and richer than the speech made by the Honorable Prime Minister. This is not my view, it's the view expressed by almost all media personages, biased or unbiased, the latter category being so few and far between, as you know. The second, about which also much has been spoken and written, is the absence of Sri Rahul Gandhi from the wedding of all weddings, or the wedding of the century, the wedding in the Ambani household. Anand Ambani Wedding Radhika merchant. Now let's analyze these two. One is a positive thing and the other is a negative thing. And then ask the question, which is more significant and why? Uh, Now, the most striking feature of Rahul Gandhi's speech in the parliament, in the Lok Sabha, is the stand he takes against fear. If anyone asks me to identify the heart of Rahul Gandhi's speech, I would say it is the repeated underlining with a heavy accent, with ample thematic material and supporting evidence on the slogan Daro Mat, Daravo Mat. Daro Mat, Daravo Mat. Now, Rahul is attacking the element of fear. And obviously, he is doing that on behalf of the country as a whole. He has the shrewdness to realize that actually the number one problem in the country for Indians as a whole, something that touches all Indians, whether young or old, male or female, rich or poor, left or right, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh, everyone, including those in the BJP camp, is fear. He has read the situation aright. Fear. And therefore, it seems to me, having listened to him right through his speech, that he is consciously launching a kind of second freedom struggle. If the first freedom struggle was to liberate India from the yoke of British domination and the fear that went with it, the second liberation movement is to liberate India from the oppressive air of fear. Liberate people from fear. That's the reason why he devoted so much time to the theme and the aberration of fear. And very, very significantly, it's an extremely astute thing to do. It's on this issue that he focused all the religions. I hope you have noticed this, that Rahul Gandhi uses the reality of this miasma of fear as the connecting link between various religions. And he begins with introducing the picture of Lord Shiv, Daromat, Abhaya Mudra. Then he goes on to all other religions and proves that all religions have this spiritual mandate in common, namely, you should not fear, because fear is the enemy of freedom, number one, and fear distorts human personality, the human being, as nothing else can. The greatest enemy of humanity is fear, and therefore, by implication, and this is a clever thing to do, by implication, those who unleash fear against their people, those who use as their weapon of fear as their weapon of preference, they are against humanity, they are against human dignity, they are also against the spiritual mandate of all religions, and therefore, by implication, they are against all religions. The true good spirit of all religions, or they are against the light of all religions. This is an amazing thing to do if you really think of it. But that's not the last thing I want to say on this issue. The most significant thing about Rahul Gandhi taking such a clear, orchestrated, carefully planned, determined stand against fear is that by positioning himself as the alternative to this politics of fear, he is actually striking a posture of fearlessness. For a person to construct a 90-minute speech around the central theme of fearlessness, the main gain is that he becomes an emblem, he becomes a living symbol of fearlessness. Now, fearlessness, particularly in an ambience of widespread fear, is an element of strength. I've introduced a very significant word in politics. I'm sure you picked on it. Strength. Now, what fear does to a people is to reduce them to a state of impotence, helplessness, bewilderment, powerlessness. A ruler or a dictator, if you like, unleashes fear in order to disempower the people, in order to reduce them to helplessness, in order to consign them to powerlessness. Because it's a very obvious fact that there is a relationship of inverse proportion between the power of the supreme leader and the powerlessness of the people. The more the supreme leader becomes powerful, the more the people have to become powerless. Contrariwise, if the people become powerful, the leader will become that much powerless. So it's very easy to pay obeisance in public to the power of the people, Janada Janardhan, people are gods, the supreme will of the people, by which democracy stands and swears, the sovereign will of the people. But in effect, what happens is that once the initial democratic process of election concludes and a certain power center forms itself, its entire attempt thereafter would be to suck in all elements of power into oneself, which process can be absolutized only by draining the entire power out of the people, out of the citizens of the country. So power must be drawn out of the people and located entirely in the power nucleus of the state, with the CEO at the top, in our case the Prime Minister. In this process of reconfiguring political power, the weapon or strategy of preference that potential dictators use is fear. Unleash fear on the people. It has got various ramifications. If I go into those details, time will get out of hand. I don't want to tax your patience, so I can leave this to your own investigation. So Rahul Gandhi was taking a stand against fear. And in doing so, he was claiming for himself and demonstrating an important strength. Strength. Please underline the word strength. What is that strength? The strength of fearlessness. When there is ambience of fear all over the country, the best thing a potential leader can do, when I say potential leader, I mean a person who wants to reconfigure the emotional and political energy of the masses, the people as a whole, upon himself. The cleverest thing he can do, and in fact the sanest and the healthiest thing he can do, is to project himself as a person of fearlessness. He virtually becomes an emblem of fearlessness. And this is the reason why Rahul's speech had such a very powerful, deep and widespread resonance throughout the country. The power was felt, but the power was not adequately analyzed and understood. That's the reason why have spent this much time on this. Now let's look at the second, which is complementary to this, which introduces to us another aspect of power, which is also equally significant, equally fascinating, perhaps even more fascinating and more powerful. And that is something that looks exactly the opposite of this. If in the parliamentary speech Rahul Gandhi was present, and he was powerfully and ponderously present, in the second instant he is conspicuously absent. I am of course referring to the Amani wedding. Now, why is that an emblem of power? If the political strategy against which Rahul militated in his significant speech in the parliament is fear, the economic strategy involved here, the economic issue involved here is that Ambani has become virtually the economic czar of India. The supreme economic ruler of India is Ambani. For a while, Ambani sort of eclipsed him, but you know what happened, Hindenburg and the rest of it, and he lost that position, and Mukesh Ambani is virtually the supreme economic emperor or Tsar of India. And when an Ambani wedding takes place, it is not merely a question of the coming together of a boy and a girl, or a man and a woman to live in blissful matrimony thereafter. It's also, wedding is also an event exalted to the status of a national ceremony, where the economic might of the patriarch of the family is showcased not only nationally but also globally. That's the reason why so much money was spent on bringing together VIPs and artists from all over the world. The attempt was, the clear intent was to exalt it to the level not merely of a national event but a global event. Mukesh Ambani wanted to make sure, and he did make sure, that this wedding was like no other in the history of the world. Even a royal wedding perhaps could not come near it. So he left no stones unturned in ensuring that every political leader who mattered in the country was invited and made to attend. It takes extraordinary courage for a politician in India in the present day context to say no to an Ambani invitation. Even long time ago, even 30 years ago, among the bureaucracy in Delhi, and I've had something to do with the bureaucracy in Delhi, as perhaps some of you would know, they used to say, and I've heard them say this with my own ears, that if you want to continue in a plum posting in Delhi, your RH factor must be right. That is, what is that? Hindujas and Reliance and Hindujas, yes. Reliance and Hindujas. They were the really powerful characters in those days. Reliance and Hindujas. Now, if a bureaucrat displeases, in those days, Father Ambani, Dhirubani Ambani, the father of Mukesh and Anil, if a bureaucrat had the impertinence to displease Dhirubani Ambani, he would be transferred the next day from his position of comfort to a most insignificant post. That's why the bureaucrats used to say, make sure that your RH factor is right. Now, that particular equation has become stronger by 1,000-fold by now, for obvious reasons. So, what did Rahul Gandhi convey to the whole nation by showing the guts to reject or not to fall in line with an Ambani event? He is showing the spiritual strength. The first was the political strength. The second is the spiritual strength of saying no to the lure of money, the power of money, before which every politician bends his knee, as was clearly showcased with politicians of every hue, every party, trooping in and out in an attitude of evident adoration, literally oozing respect and affection for the Ambani clan. They know that if they don't do it, they'll be in trouble. The very political survival could be at risk. Now, this, of course, the whole country knows because it's right in front of them. You just have to open your eyes and you can see it. And in that panorama of the endless display of political backbonelessness and the kind of eager compliance with the Ambani dictate or diktat, there is a missing link, and that missing link is Rahul Gandhi. And therefore, Rahul, being as astute as he is now, those who still think that he is Pappu, so now the word Pappu has been discarded in favor of Balak Buddhi, which is virtually the same thing. Those who really think so, they have to think twice. He's showing extraordinary astuteness, something that even Subramaniam Swami needs to take note of. It's dangerous to underestimate your enemy if you think of Rahul Gandhi as your enemy. So, he is demonstrating a power, and that power has already spoken to the imagination of millions of Indians. That's the reason why, more than his parliamentary speech, his absence from the Amani Wedding Gala has been the talk of the town. That itself communicates a lot. Now, if you want to understand the power of this, let me give you a crude illustration, and on that I'll close. You take a sock, a pair of socks, one of them is sock, S-O-C-K, right? Now, you bought a new pair of socks and you were examining them, and you took one of them and found a hole. Suddenly the entire thing is useless. What is a hole? The hole is an absence of a little bit of material. But that little portion where the material is absent is far more powerful than the entire sock where perhaps 1,000 times more of that material is present. That small little absence is 100 times more powerful than all the material that is present. I am using a negative illustration but the idea can be understood, why absence can be very powerful. And I give credit to this young man for his shrewdness, for his intellectual acuity in reading the psychology of the nation, the mood of the nation aright. Suddenly, all the politicians, including Sri Narendra Modi, who trooped into the Ambani camp and out of it, looked very jaded. Whereas the picture of Sri Rahul Gandhi sitting in the corner of a middle class eatery in Delhi and chewing a little bit of pizza has a power that words cannot adequately describe. Now you decide who is Pappu and who is not. That's it. I have nothing more to say. Thank you. Let's continue our journey together. I greatly appreciate and immensely value the very thought that you are there, the very thought, your presence. I can't see you, but I can sense you. Why? Because I love you. It's my privilege to love you, and it's because I love you. From within me wells up this inexhaustible fountain spring of ideas and insights that sometimes surprise me. I'm not exaggerating. In my waking moments, even in my sleep, I think of you and I think of nothing else. Never mind who you are. You are precious because if your hearts and minds were not in the right place, you would not have been part of this pilgrimage, this political, humane pilgrimage, which also is illumined by the light of the eternal. Because after all, our perspective is spiritual, even when we deal with political issues. But then I will not confine myself to political issues.